And he continued through the Beatitudes. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Mourning, Augustine wrote, is an act of human love, natural and not wrong. He called it sorrow arising from the loss of things held dear. But those who are converted to God lose those things which they are accustomed to embrace as dear in this world, comforted by the Holy Spirit, who is called the Paraclete, i.e., the Comforter. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. The meek, St. Augustine says, are those who yield to acts of wickedness and do not resist evil, but overcome evil with good. Let those, then, who are not meek quarrel and fight for earthly and temporal things, but blessed are the meek, for they shall, by inheritance, possess the earth from which they cannot be driven out. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. I quote Augustine, lovers of a true and indestructible good will be filled with that food of which the Lord himself says, my meat is to do the will of my Father, which is righteousness. And with that, water, of which whosoever drinks, as he also says, it shall be in him a well of water, springing up into everlasting life. Hunger and thirst satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Augustine's concept of heavenly rewards is beyond his response here. They who are blessed, they are blessed, who relieve the miserable, for it is paid back to them in such a way that they are freed from misery. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Augustine writes, how foolish are those who seek God with these outward eyes, since he is seen with the heart. And just as light cannot be seen except with pure eyes, so neither is God seen unless that is pure by which he can be seen. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. Augustine writes that the children of God are peacemakers, because nothing resists God. And surely children ought to have the likeness of their father. Now, what we earthly fathers know is that the likeness children get from their father is not always in appearance. Far more often, it's what kids see and do from their father and react to that. Patterns of speech and behavior picked up in observing dad from littlest years up, and so often adopted. We have to make sure that that likeness is a good one. This is the message in the attitudes that I believe Christ was passing from his Father God to those sons he was sending out, and the message St. Augustine was passing along to us. And the message, the definition of true Christianity, that we fathers of today must give to our own children. That just as the Beatitudes start with the poor in spirit, which Augustine translates to the humble, everything truly Christian starts with humility. That we shouldn't feel guilty when crying over a loved one's death. It's right for us to mourn, but with the comforting assurance of faith that we are to be meek, to turn the other cheek, to greet hateful acts with the nonviolence of Martin Luther King. That we should always hunger and thirst for righteousness, for the Christian message. In the manner of their great song, I love to tell the story, for those who know it best seem hungering and thirsting to hear it like the rest. That we are to be merciful as Christ was merciful to us and to a world that condemned him to death. that whatever we run it into, we are to remain pure in heart. We are, among warring and vengeful man, to be peacemakers, true sons of God. We are to forgive. Now Matthew lists one more blessing, but Augustine and others hear a different voice in this one. Here for the first time, Augustine hears Christ talking to the disciples, not about what he wants them to preach in his name, but warning of what they personally will experience and gain. Blessed shall ye be when men shall revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven. It is important to note Christ's deep meaning in this non-beatitude. This is the true Father speaking painfully to his self-chosen sons. He knew what was ahead for them, and it was grim, much worse than hearing words that revile. We don't often read about it. But did you know that 10 of those 11 faithful disciples, everyone but John, ultimately was murdered, brutally. And even John was arrested, sentenced to death by boiling in oil, and somehow escaped it and lived to 94. But otherwise, James, the brother of John, was beheaded in Jerusalem in 43 AD. Andrew was crucified on an X-like cross in Patras, Greece in 43 AD. Matthew was killed by an axe-like weapon at Nadabah, Ethiopia in 50 AD. Philip was crucified at Heliopolis in Egypt in 54 AD. Peter was crucified upside down by his request in Rome in 68 AD. Bartholomew was beaten and beheaded in India. Thomas was thrust through by a spear by pagan priests in India in 72 AD. Thaddeus was crucified at Edessa in what is now Turkey in 72 AD. Simon was crucified in Great Britain in 74 AD. The other James, the one that Christian history inelegantly calls James the Lesser to distinguish him from St. James, the brother of John. That James at 94 was killed in Jerusalem, his skull crushed by a blacksmith's hammer. 10 violent deaths. And think of those death sites: India, Ethiopia, Egypt, Greece, Turkey, Great Britain, Rome, Jerusalem. One by one, these men who heard that message were brutalized while carrying out the charge that Christ gave them: go ye into all the world and preach the gospel. Isn't it likely that those martyred disciples each went to death remembering that day on the mountain, that non-beatitude from Christ, those warning, reassuring words: blessed shall ye be when men shall persecute you for my sake. Rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven. The risk of martyred death does not test the strength of our faith today, but we as fathers should be talking to our children about the threats that they do face. I speak primarily, but not solely, of drugs, the availability, the omnipresence